But yeah, so kind of going into a little bit challenges of NLP versus like applications, right? Some challenges is think of this like from a computer standpoint, but also think of it from like your own standpoint. Like reading this kind of sentence, this is just something I wrote. It's like, I was led to believe that the fire festival would be an amazing transcendent event. I was conned. So you can see like this sounds like by itself before here, like if you didn't realize led to believe, you could say like the fire festival would be an amazing transcendent event. Like, oh, this sounds positive. But there are key parts here, for example, like was led to believe, like, okay, this kind of gives you a setup of saying this isn't actually what happened. And then I was conned, which basically negates the whole thing right here. So you can kind of see that this would be kind of difficult to like, how do you tell a computer like to look out for these kind of terms and stuff? And as a natural, you know, as humans, we can kind of read this through and understand. I mean, I don't say if humans as an English speaker, especially a native English speaker, we might be able to see these parts, but especially if you're a second language English learner, you might not necessarily hear these kind of connotations and stuff like that that imply certain sentiment and stuff like this. So this is kind of the difficulty that's brought up in like, you know, just NLP going through. Another part is just lack of context. So like semantics and stuff like this. So I find this one really interesting. The pipe couldn't fit through the hole in the wall since it was too big. What was too big in this case?
The pipe.
The pipe, right? So that it is referring to the pipe. How do you know it's the pipe?
Because it just makes sense.
It makes sense, right? Yeah, it wouldn't make sense if the hole was too big, because if the hole was too big, the pipe would fit through fine, right? So it makes sense. But you can read this right here. The pipe couldn't fit through the hole in the wall since it was too small. All I changed here was small and big. And that's the big thing, is that in the sense that you have to know context. Like you have to understand what this it is referring to. You have to understand the concept of a pipe in a hole and stuff like this, and understanding like if you're trying to fit this through something, you know, how would this go through? So imagine now like trying to generalize this information. These are the kind of challenges in NLP. And there's certain ways we can kind of go through this. One basically is just going through examples, right? If it's seen this sentence example, your model, it might be able to figure parts of this out. But we want to make this more general because there's an infinite way of like, well, not infinite, but like pretty close to infinite way of like expressing all the different English words and combinations that are even grammatically made sense. If you look something like, if you take like 5 or 6 random words, I think, and form them into a coherent sentence, there's a high chance that like that sentence was never iterated ever before, which is really interesting just because the high number of words and combinations you can do. So like that's the kind of like thing you have to face in NLP, is that you have a high variety of just possibilities. So you can't train for every single instance. You can't do if this, then that as a general thing. And 2 is that there's this ambiguity just in context. Another famous one that I like to talk about is the sentence of saying something like the mouse moved across the desk to get the cheese. But that you don't know what mouse is until you say cheese. Mouse could have been a computer mouse. So if it moved, the mouse moved across the desk and the cursor moved on the computer, then it's like, oh, okay, like we understand that mouse is a computer mouse versus an animal mouse. So those are the kind of things where really it comes on context of like understanding what those things are and connecting not just at the beginning, but like at the end too. So you can have things at the very beginning, like this pipe couldn't fit through the hole, and say it was too small. But you can also have something where mouse occurs, but you don't know what it is until the very end of the sentence. So these are like really interesting challenges for natural language. Okay.